4 years ago, I dreaded my life for 8+ hours a day. I had constant anxiety from the moment I woke up, and I used any excuse to escape from the reality that was my full-time corporate job. It took burnout and borderline depression, coupled with a few happy accidents, for me to realize this was not the life for me and that there was more in store for my life. I knew at the time I wasn't living up to my full potential, not my bosses, not my parents, not my friends, my potential and expectations. And if you don't want to spend another 365 days of your life only living for the weekend, procrastinating on your personal goals, and feeling bitter about everything and everyone around you because you're unhappy, keep watching because we're about to start living. These are the exact thought processes and questions I had to ask myself 4 years ago when I was contemplating quitting my job for the 700th time. And I think my biggest fear was, could I do it? Could I actually take the leap from this boring tech job that I hated to creating the life of my dreams, being a full-time content creator and full-time entrepreneur? And from personal experience, I can tell you there's only two outcomes in this scenario. One, a year from now, you're gonna look back and you're gonna be pissed that you didn't do anything about this because now you're back in the same cycle. Or two, you're gonna be so relieved that you did something about it, even if it's not 100% figured out, even if it's not 100% perfect, you're going to be happy that you tried. Because my argument, 99% of the time, corporate, your job will always be there, but the opportunity to do something about the dreams you have right now may not be here next year. And even if it is, because technically it's never too late, you're probably gonna wish that you started sooner, because why not? Why wouldn't you wanna live the life that you wanna live sooner than later? Almost 5 years later, and after learning how to be a 6-figure social media manager, full-time content creator, and new brand owner, I can assure you that to this day, quitting was the most, and I'm talking about the most successful decision I've ever made. And it changed my life completely. So if you're someone who was like me and who knew that they were meant for more and knew that there was another life outside of this 9-to-5 rat race, ass-kissing structure, this video is for you. Here on this channel, we value time freedom, creativity, passion for what you do, making an actual impact on the world around you, and the plethora of opportunities that are there once you take the leap. And I know what you're thinking, how am I gonna quit when I don't have any money? How can I afford to leave, and what the heck am I gonna do next? Don't worry, we're breaking it all down today in this video. I'm gonna share the exact tools I used that prepared me to leave my job with, at the time, no plan and no money, and how you too can start the life that you dream of. Not just job hopping and getting a check, but doing something you actually enjoy. So get your notebook out, get your pen and paper. We have a lot on the agenda. We're gonna get rid of that crippling self-doubt and anxiety that holds you back. We're gonna explore freedom through freelancing and the skills that you already have while budgeting for that big leap. And we're gonna set you up to be your own boss and start the plan for your new life. And don't just take my word for it. Over the past 4 years, I've had several friends and family come to me about this exact issue, and a lot of success stories of people who have successfully quit and are now doing their dream job, including myself. This stuff is possible if you do it and you put in the hard work and the intention. And while there are plenty of ways to do this, this is just a method that I've followed throughout my journey directly from my personal experience. So be sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and in the description will be all of the resources that I list in this video, including a free full checklist of how you're going to quit and go towards your dream life. Before we begin, if you want to see my full story of how I quit, how I left corporate, and how I knew to leave, I have 2 separate videos, one fully on my story and then another one breaking down the signs that I knew. So I'm not going to cover the full story in this video, but if you want to watch more, these are the videos here, and let's dive in. Before we continue, I just want to give a little disclaimer because I know there could be a lot of resistance that comes up, especially with such a big decision like quitting your job. These principles and rules may not be for everyone, although I do feel like it's extremely relevant, especially if you're feeling called to even click into a video like this, because odds are if you clicked into this video, you're either in a cyclical cycle of loving then hating your job. You may not hate your job, but you know that there's more for you, like this is not enough, or you're for sure that you're meant to do something more, something big, have a lot of impact on this world, and your job just really keeps you in for the nice paycheck and for the cushy lifestyle. Or last but not least, you're at your wit's end and you're ready to make the change and you're feeling called to go ASAP. I was exactly all 4 of these at the same time. So from experience, I will say to you, if you want to hold on to the excuses and maintain the reality that you do have, which mind you is not comfortable because you're here, then you can probably safely click out of this video. But back to my point earlier, just know that this will tend to be a cyclical thing and you'll be back right where you started. I see a lot of resistance to quitting because of so many different excuses, but the top ones I see are the economy, the inflation, you have bills to pay, and you have no other skills. There's nothing else you could possibly do. Your corporate job is the only way that you can earn a livelihood and be happy. And I can tell you, as somebody who left with barely any money, who was paying for everything on my own in my own apartment, with my own car, with my own everything, and had 3 months of savings, all of these things are very much as big of a problem as you make it. So yes, while these are valid points, they don't have to hold you back if you don't let them. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Leaving your job, leaving stability is risky, but stability is usually just something that we've created in our mind. It's not technically real. Your job could fire you at any moment, at any day. And while it may happen less or may seem less likely to happen at a stable corporate company, your company is a business like every other business. So just as unstable businesses expenses are, it can be the same way with corporate as well. And honestly, I find it riskier to live a life you're unhappy with for years and years and years and miss out on all the opportunity you had right in front of you just because of fear. And while this might be obvious, I just want to give a disclaimer. This is not professional, financial, or legal advice. This is personally my opinion and what I used to get out of my corporate job. I personally don't recommend jumping out of your job and jumping right into this $1 million business idea. This is more about securing a new income so you can start building the life of your dreams, because when you're doing something you hate and it consumes most of your day, it's hard to think clearly and get clear on that vision that will lead to your happiness if you're clouded by all the things that you don't enjoy all day. So this is really just about that next obvious step and securing a decent enough income to be able to do that. All right, so we're gonna break this down into 3 different parts. We're gonna talk about mindset, which I think is number 1, especially as someone who's gonna go out on your own, be your own boss. In any type of entrepreneurial venture, you need to have your mindset down. Then we're gonna talk about money and how you're going to secure your new income, how you're going to figure out your finances. And then lastly, we're gonna cover momentum, which is what you're gonna need in this new journey and this new life to keep yourself in the game. All right, let's talk mindset. Most of us think that we need to have our money more together. I argue that we need to have our mindset more together, because this is really just an emotional process. So a few things I wish I knew back then and some mindset shifts that really changed the game for me are these set of beliefs that I'm about to rapid fire and debunk right now. 1, we tend to think that this is risky. This is just an innately risky decision and that there's nothing we can do about it, and why would you go towards something that's risky? What I would say is to measure the risk of both situations. There's a risk associated with leaving your job. There's also a risk associated with staying in your job. There is a fear setting exercise that I'll link also in the checklist that will help you go through this, but it's important to assess both of these because everything has risks. Everything can be uncertain if you look at it in a certain angle. It's just about which one do you prioritize, which one is more important to you. Personally, my freedom, my creativity, my expression is way more important, way more risky to lose in a corporate environment than to have an unstable paycheck. Another one is if I can't do it now, I can't do it later. The person you are now and the person you will become are 2 different people, and that's something that you have to understand, and I wish I knew. Right now, you're assessing that risk based on what you can do now, the skills you have now, the energy, the time, the way you think, which all change when you're doing something that you love all day or just simply not doing something you hate all day. The way I was able to be so much more productive when I was able to design my days, when I was doing work that meant something to me, working on content, working on social media, something I felt good at, I 10x in every other area of my life. And that's something to know. I had a very fixed mindset before I left my corporate job, but going towards entrepreneurship has shown me how to have a growth mindset and know that everything over time can be changed and developed. You have no idea where these little actions are taking you. I'm in favor of having a backup plan, but a lot of times we think we need a plan A to Z to do something scary, to do something risky. You don't need that many plans. Again, you need the mindset to overcome obstacles. That is more resilient and sustainable than having a million different plans that you can choose from. Instead, make yourself the resilient part of each plan. Getting quick on your feet, learning how to acquire skills very fast, learning how to network. These are all things that you can use in any situation, and you can develop these things with time and practice. One of my friends said something that I thought was genius, is that you don't need a backup plan. You just need a brain. And I think we all have brains and we haven't been using them very much, especially in these jobs that we don't like, and we're quiet quitting and we're not trying and we're not being challenged enough. So we think we don't have what it takes to overcome obstacles, but you just haven't put it to work yet. Growth requires you to be unstable, step out of your comfort zone, become a different person. You cannot be both people at the same time. So the lifestyle that you have right now that you might have to give up for 3-6 months, which for me was only like 6 months of me giving up the lifestyle I had in return for something better, seems like a lot right now, but it's gonna be so much more worth it later. But it's a temporary price to pay for going towards something that is better for you. At my corporate job, I was living a lavish lifestyle with 3 to 4K a month, and 6 months later, that was a 10 to 15K a month. I had to pay the price of giving that up for a little bit of time to get something even better. Also, a huge point that a lot of the things that you think you need now are typically just how we cope with staying at a corporate job. There's a lot of things I thought I needed that I didn't need. All these subscriptions, all of these packages, all these products, which when I was unhappy, I needed that to go on. But when I wasn't unhappy, these things just felt like a bonus. They felt like extra. So I was able to survive on a lot less. This one might be controversial, but a huge one is also healthcare. I know a lot of us stick to our jobs because of healthcare and what it can provide. But what's funny is that we don't even think about what the healthcare is for and why we're getting it anyway. I went a long time without having proper healthcare just so I could take this risk and go on this venture. And because I was able to work out and take care of my body, I really didn't need to go to the doctor that much. I wasn't really getting sick that much. Now, this might vary person to person, especially if you have illnesses or recurring things that happen to you. But I was relatively healthy, and I think I was healthier when I was without health insurance because I was actually having to take responsibility for my health. Another myth is that it's going to take forever. It's going to take forever for you to get back on your feet. feet, figure out a life that works for you. And when I tell you time doubles when you're out of corporate, I am not kidding. 24 hours felt like 48 hours in a day because I wasn't bogged down by Slack messages, annoying meetings. I had the time to myself to be creative, to be productive. Again, design my day based on how it is for me and not have to be in an office or talk to people that I don't get along with. When you leave corporate, you have to narrow your timeline. Corporate teaches you to think in 5-year plans, 10-year plans. When it comes to real life, thinking on a shorter time basis will actually help and benefit you. So not thinking about how am I going to have this for 5 years or 10 years from now. Think about what is the next month going to look like? How can I break that down and make that the most impactful? Because it's about those daily habits and actions that will change your 5-year plan. Will it work out? You will ruminate on this over and over again, sometimes involuntarily, but the thing is you have to decide if it will. If you decide it will work out, it will work out. If you decide it won't, it won't. You can't predict the future, so stop trying to, and instead try to influence it as much as you can. I don't have a choice. Actually, but you do. There's always a solution, and one thing as an entrepreneur, creator, whatever it is that's going to be in your dream life, you are going to have to choose. And choices require sacrifice. And I think that's why a lot of us think we don't have a choice or we can't make a choice. You always have a choice. You just have to know what you're willing to sacrifice and make that decision. And actually the richest people are the ones who make choices. Everybody else is just waiting for people to make choices for them. It's about which one would I rather do, because you're always making a choice at all times in your life. And the last one, should I stay instead? This probably will be the biggest question you ask yourself, especially when things are getting hard. But the thought process I lean on is, does this choice, does this thing that I'm thinking promote action or inaction? If staying promotes more action for you, I'd argue maybe you can stay, maybe there's more for you to learn, maybe there's something you can gain there. But if it promotes more inaction, more quiet quitting, more lounging, more wiggling your mouth, I think that there's more meant for you. There's ways you can get all of these rational and irrational fears out on paper, out of your head, and start learning how to change these beliefs, challenge them, stress test them, because I think the biggest thing we do is that we have these fears, we have these anxieties, and we just let them sit, and we believe them as true, and we never challenge them or think about it critically. There's a really good exercise from Tim Ferriss called the fear setting exercise. I highly encourage you, if you're somebody with a lot of fear and anxiety around leaving or doing things that are scary, to sit down and think about these fears critically and sort of make these backup plans for all the fears that you have. Because typically when you have the anxious thought, you just stop there. But if you keep going, you realize there's a solution for all of these things. For instance, if I leave my job, I will have no money. What the exercise allows you to do is think about, okay, in that situation, what would you realistically have to do? If you had $0 in your bank account, what would be your next course of action? For me personally, I wouldn't want to go back to my old job, so I would start looking for other jobs that are easier for me, maybe something that isn't as challenging, so I could work on my content and work on my business at the same time. Maybe I would apply to be somebody's admin or VA, and these are things that I literally did in the process. And maybe it's not my same salary, but it's enough money to keep me alive while I work on my business that also has potential to earn me money in the future. Maybe you're afraid that you're going to lose your car. Maybe you're afraid they're going to lose your friends or your family will disapprove. Think about the next steps and think about how you would actually solve them, because you realize you have more solutions than you think. Okay, now that we got some limiting beliefs out the way, we need to make a commitment. You are not going to leave your job. You are not going to make a change unless you are committing to yourself or committing to a process of changing your life. I personally like this being a physical thing, something I can touch, something I have to sign, something that I can put in my calendar. So I would recommend making yourself a commitment letter, whether this is just a 2-sentence thing that you draft up and sign, or it's multiple pages. Like, make a commitment to yourself that you are actually going to do this thing. The biggest way to do this is to write the resignation letter before you have actually quit. This is something I did and I've heard other people do successfully as a way of sort of manifesting this action before it actually happens. So even if you're not 100% sure on what you're going to do or how life is going to look like afterwards, just committing to a date or a time where you are going to make a decision is very helpful. So what I recommend doing is drafting yourself a commitment letter or drafting yourself a resignation letter where you're fully expressing how you are going to leave this job by a certain date and setting a time on your calendar to turn this resignation letter in. So whether this is 2 months from now or 3 months from now, you have a set date. Again, I have some templates in the description, but you can also just write this on your own. And the last thing when it comes to mindset is understanding what an aligned life looks like for you. So we don't want to just go back to job hopping and going after a job just because of the check. We want to go towards alignment. And the only way you can know if you're aligned with something is to understand what makes you feel aligned. My favorite thing and what I recommend for everybody to take is a values test. It's free, it's online, it's also included in your checklist and the workbook, but it helps you identify what is valuable to you in your life. Values is just another way that you can make decisions for your life that feel aligned. It helps you narrow out options, friends, career paths, jobs. And this is actually what helped me realize that I wasn't aligned to my corporate job, because we didn't HR exercise where we talked about values, and I realized that everybody's values at the table I was sitting at, full of leaders, VPs, high execs, did not match mine. And I thought, if that's what they value and I value something completely different, then my future in that job, in that setting, was going towards something that was misaligned for me. So understanding what your top are and making decisions on that is going to be key. When I did my values test, I realized that my top values are freedom, creativity, growth, authenticity, fun. So if I don't have a job where all of those things come alive, I know I won't be as happy. And a job like social media marketing and managing as a freelancer gave me all of those things and more, because it was finally where I got to express myself. I got to be creative with clients. I had autonomy over my day, and I really felt like I was growing and doing things that actually matter to me. This is obviously the most popular question with reason, because how are you going to afford your new life, especially if you don't have your job anymore? Well, let me introduce you to freelancing. Freelancing is something I discovered after I quit my job. It's something I had been dabbling into to explore after I left, but I really didn't pull the trigger until after. And oh my gosh, where had it been all my life? Because it matched my lifestyle so much more than a corporate job at 9 to 5. And what I always say about freelancing is that you can freelance literally anything. So any skill that you have can be freelance. Some have bigger markets than others, but most skills can be freelance. Like, think about even the simple chores. If you need somebody to clean out your garage, if you need help with your taxes and you need to hire someone quickly, like, there's usually somebody who offers a service in that. So similar to that, there are skills that you have right now that can be freelanced or sold. Even if you don't want to be an official freelancer in that industry or for that skill, if it helps you pay the bills until you figure out what you want to do, I think it's worth it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, and what I highly recommend, is understand the skills that you already have. Hard and soft skills that you can use and that you can sell. So before you think that I don't have anything to offer, everyone has skills. As you are right now, you have at least one skill that can be sold. You've just never been in the situation to sell it, and you've never been taught how to. So I'm going to go through quickly how you can start identifying and start using these skills to make money. One, you need to discover them or rediscover them. So think about what you do currently at your job right now. What do you have to do on a daily basis? Like, why do they pay you? There's a reason they pay you, because that skill is valuable. And if you can do it for them, you can do it for yourself. Whether that is talking to people, whether that is making spreadsheets, whether that is designing something. So write down all the things you do at work, things that you do for friends, things you do for your family, for people in general, where they get value and you know how to do it. You're confident in these skills and you're good enough. Maybe you're not the best, but you're good enough. Because it's sometimes hard for us to acknowledge what we do and what value we provide. Think about what people come to you for all the time, whether it's your boss, whether it's your best friends, whether it's your parents. Like, why do they always come to you for a particular reason? For me, people always came to me for social media, for design, for organization. Some other questions that might jog your memory are, what do you really enjoy doing? What are you always doing and it feels easy to you? And when people tell you, like, oh my God, how'd you do that? Like, that was so hard. You're like, what? That was so easy. Those are the perfect things you can offer as a service. And people package it up very differently. And if you just do a quick Google search or search on top freelancing websites like Upwork, Fiverr, you can start to see that these things are offered for money. And one of my favorite exercises that I got from Marie Forleo, who is a big time entrepreneur, she has literally created her dream job from scratch, is asking people around you. So a lot of times we think we don't have any skills, but other people see it so easily, which is a sign that they find value in it, even though we think it's not that big of a deal. So this exercise is really fun because you can go around and ask 10 to 15 people that you know. I would choose friends or family or people you've known really well who have known you for a significant amount of time, and ask them what your top strengths or skills are, because through this you'll be able to identify what people consistently find valuable in what you do and how you do it. You can use this exact script when you're reaching out to people. This was Marie Forleo's example, and I just remixed it a little bit to make it shorter. You can email it to them, you can text it to them, but just try to get these answers quickly and give them a deadline so they get back to you. I highly recommend getting as many people as possible so you have a lot of data and information and you start to see the correlation. Like, everybody was telling me that I'm very driven, I'm very motivating, I'm very inspiring, they like the way I communicate with them, and that all ties into the jobs I do today. So once you have a good grip on what your skills are, what you like to do, you need to understand how much you need to make to survive. This is covering your foundation for you to start planning this dream life. So you want to figure out how you can make money through those skills that you discovered or rediscovered. I am not a math person and I barely did any budgeting before leaving. I just did quick back of the napkin math, and while I don't recommend it, I don't think you need to overcomplicate this section or overcomplicate your finances, because a lot of these constraints allow you to get creative in how you make this money. The biggest things that you want to focus on here are, what are my expenses and how much do I need to make? And when I say expenses, I mean the very bare minimum, the basic things you need to survive. That is groceries, that is gas, maybe a car payment, any immediate bills or loans. And I'm talking about the things that need to be paid, not the nice to haves. You're gonna have to give up that nice extra payment you put on your credit card or that nice extra payment you put on your loan. This is the bare minimum of what needs to be paid, because because this will make it easier for you in your freelancing ventures to cover all of those expenses. This is not the time to be paying down debt. If there's any room for you to take a pause, do that. And when you're back on your feet, you can restart paying extra on those loans or big debts. And when we're talking expenses, we're cutting out any luxury spending. And I know as somebody who was a chronic shopper, this was very hard, but it was actually a lot more rewarding to do work that I wanted to do than buy clothes to cope as a void for not being happy in my life. And you want to try to get each of these items as low as possible. And again, this is temporary. What can you cut back for the next 3 to 6 months just so you can get back on your feet and remake this income again? Because this is just step one, like quitting your job and getting back on your feet without that corporate job, without that structure that's sucking the life from you, is just step one. There's going to be a plan to building that next section that could actually double or triple your income. So you're going to use that current expenses with everything lowered and everything at its minimum as your new goal. This is your new monthly goal. How can you make that new amount every month with the skills that you can freelance? And if you want a budgeting template, that is also included in the supplementary workbook. So that leads us to putting yourself out there. How are you going to get this money and acquire all of this cash? One, I want to say before I get into how you can do this through freelancing or using your skills, is get creative. A lot of us don't want to get creative because we think it's not ideal. I, for example, didn't have any money saved up and I quit on a whim, whereas I probably could have done some more planning. I got really creative with my resources. A lot of us pay into a 401k and a lot of savings accounts. And if you're serious about this new life that you're creating and you plan to invest back into it, I highly recommend looking at all of those accounts to see how long you can survive for. Because again, this is temporary. So what I did, because I didn't have a lot of savings to lean onto, I took my money out of my 401k. I know this is a big deal, super controversial, everybody's shaking in their boots, but I knew that that was an investment towards my future. I wasn't just going to spend all of that money frivolously. I wasn't planning on going back to corporate, so it didn't really make sense for me to set up my finances in a corporate structure. I would rather make that investment with my own money outside of corporate and be able to put a lot more into those accounts than I would with my corporate 401k. So for me, that was a trade-off that I had to make, but it made a lot of sense for me and especially the future that I had planned. Other ways I got creative was selling my clothes, doing little tasks for neighbors and friends. Like, these are ways you can get a little bit of money in your account while you're in this building phase. But if you're trying to rebuild that income or find stability in your new life, I would highly recommend putting yourself out there on platforms and with people you know. There's a couple freelance websites that I recommend, which are Upwork, Fiverr, and Contra. And these websites are basically a marketplace for freelancers like you who have skills and other companies or businesses who need those skills to have that exchange. So you can sell your services and there are companies on there who are looking for people who have the skills that you already have, and you can set your prices and get paid to do that work. But I wouldn't just limit this to freelance platforms. There are so many ways you can get freelance clients or clients in any capacity, whether that's DMing people, pitching people, starting content so people know that you have these services. You can create an easy portfolio of any projects you've done in the past, anything similar, or even if you haven't done projects for a company or for people, you can make them up. They're literally like mock projects that you can create and pretend as if you would do it for somebody. This is really good in the marketing tech world because a lot of people need to see, like, how would you build a website? How would you manage my social media? And you can just pretend and make a mock project. And don't be shy to ask people around you. There's a script that I'll include in the checklist that gives you a way to pitch people you know without actually having to pitch them. It's one of my favorite ways to find credible work. I got it from this book, We Should All Be Millionaires. In here, she has a script and I just remixed it a little bit, but you're simply asking them if they know anyone who's looking for that service. And if they need it, they'll probably work with you directly. And if they know someone else, they can connect you with someone. And another one helps a lot with networking and getting to know people, but don't be afraid to ask people. If there's somebody you admire who's doing something you like, ask them for a coffee chat, ask them for information, research people who are doing the things you want to do and take notes on what they're doing and just repeat it. For the freelance platforms, I have some scripts that you can use to pitch clients on Contra, Upwork, things that have worked for me in the past. So I feel like these scripts are a great way to get connected with people, whether that's just having a coffee chat and learning from someone. I recommend putting in at least 10 to 20 applications and or reaching out to 20 people that you know, because with freelance, unlike a corporate job, you need to be putting in a lot of reps because there can be a lot of room for failure. It's probably a 10%, 20% chance you'll get people who respond and want to work with you. Be sure to factor in taxes because as a freelancer, you pay your own taxes. I always like to reserve 30% of my check just in case to pay back to the government for my taxes at the end of the year. And by the way, there's more freelance content and resources coming soon, so stay tuned for that if you want to get more into freelancing and how it works. Okay, for the very last step, you want to get some momentum going. It is very hard as a solo entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, or self-employed person to keep the momentum and keep with this dream, especially if you made a big decision and you made it alone. So what I like to do is set my environment for success so that I stick with it. It's like making a plan and and making the system for you to keep doing it. Being your own boss, being without a stable corporate job that provides you with a schedule and a check and stability and structure is going to feel different. So you essentially have to recreate all of those things on your own, but this time you get to do it the way you like, the way you've always wanted it to be. So number one is designing your days. Design your days the way you operate best. This will take some trial and error, but one hack that I found is really tapping into a future self version of myself. I know this sounds woo-woo, but I swear future you has all the answers. Picture you a year ahead, 2 years ahead. What does that person know? They're thriving, they're living their best life, they have their dream job, they have their dream schedule, their dream day. What would that look like? So one exercise I really like to do is a future self journaling prompt. What you're gonna do is you're gonna sit down in a quiet area, give yourself 30 minutes and really take yourself and transport yourself mentally to that future version of yourself who has everything figured out. What do they know? What does their typical day look like? Think 1 to 2 years ahead of you right now. And what I do is literally journal as present day future me, if that makes sense. This is just another exercise to help you discover what's important to you and what you see your life becoming. And another exercise is a dream day exercise. So using that kind of future self wisdom, think about what your dream day entails. What are you doing on a day-to-day? Do you have a long morning routine? Do you see people often? Are you creating content? Are you making products? Like, what does that dream day entail? Even if this is not what you're gonna do tomorrow or next month, getting an idea of this helps you to choose jobs, even if they're not the exact jobs, that are more in line with your vision than just random jobs for a paycheck. Then you want to visualize this in a vision board. I do this every quarter to make sure the things that I'm seeing vision-wise are things that are in front of me, whether that's on my desktop or my phone. I'm constantly seeing and visualizing what my future life will look like. All three of those exercises are also included in your quitting checklist. And after that, you're gonna wanna get into tangible quarterly planning. I like planning in quarters because I think it's, again, enough time for you to make a change, but it's not enough time for you to sit around and do nothing. And you sort of wanna plan your life post your quitting date. What is life going to look like? How are you gonna structure your day-to-day, your weekly, daily schedules and tasks? From those previous exercises, I really identified the person I wanna be, and it makes it super easy to do the tasks that that person would do. So using the future self goal setting that's also in the quitting checklist, you can ask yourself, who do I wanna be? Which you have answers from the previous exercises. Think about, what does that person do? What are they engaging in on a daily basis? And then lastly, how can you start that today? What could you put in your calendar right now? And then once you have the answers from this exercise, put that into your calendar. Start making your day in your calendar, in your Google Calendar or Notion planner, wherever you put your weekly and daily tasks, and start trialing some of these things out. A lot of this takes trial and error, but as long as you're intentional about the plan and you put in the work, you can start to iterate to make it perfect. And the last thing for momentum is community and accountability. You need to surround yourself around people, things, media that keeps you going towards your goal, because it's so easy to revert back to the normal path. I literally surrounded myself with social media marketing content, with creators online who were teaching me how to do the job, which is why I knew how to do the job. And once I started doing the job, I got connected to even more freelancers, more entrepreneurs, and that kept me in the game a lot longer than if I were to have no community, no one to talk to, or no one to relate to. The easiest way to do this is through content online, social media, your YouTube feeds. Really curate it to be around people that you look up to, people you want to be like. You can also do this through courses and learning. Another option is books. You can read books about business, entrepreneurship, whatever it is that your field focuses on, going to in-person events. All of these things really help in the moments where you're unsure, you have doubt, uncertainty, and you get to see examples of how other people have done it. Post content. This was number one for me. After posting content about what I do and connecting with other freelancers, it was so much easier to find other freelancers and find other entrepreneurs. So I highly recommend just posting your journey, post about what you're doing, because that's how you really connect with people on a mass scale. And all of that wraps up today's video. Don't forget to head to the description for all of the resources I mentioned. It's all packaged for free and the quitting checklist. Let me know if this helped or if you have any other questions, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another video. There's more on freelancing and more dream life tips coming soon. Have a wonderful day and happy quitting.